What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Well Man's Podcast. My name is Brian Brosey. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Keone Tita. Keone, how are you today?
Doing wonderful. Hey, everybody. I'm excited today because my workout this morning actually included kettlebells. So we're going to talk about kettlebells and proper form and what they're good for and how to do them and everything. And the expert on this is you, Brian. And actually, you with your initial videos I saw online was the one who initially got me back into doing kettlebells. So.
Yeah, I absolutely love them. And a part of the reason why I picked them up was just their versatility. And I got so bored of going to the gym and doing like a bodybuilding type workout and just going through the motions and just doing this type of lift and then this type of lift and making it more functional was a lot more fun. And I love how kettlebells keep you flowing and moving. So you can do a lot of different things with them and stay moving. But yeah, I post a lot of kettlebell stuff on Instagram quite a bit. And I get a lot of questions about, hey, Brian, I just moved to an apartment complex and the gym has kettlebells. Like, how do I start without hurting myself? Right. So this is basically what that podcast is intended to answer. So this will just be kind of like a primer.
Good. Yeah. I mean, so when I first started doing kettlebells, I threw my back out.
Yeah. And that's really common.
I went too heavy, too fast.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. It's really common. And people, it is very functional and relatable to everyday activities, but it's got to be done properly or you could definitely hurt yourself because it is so swinging or you're doing so much motion. It's not just sitting there and lifting.
Right.
So a little bit of intro on the kettlebell. Kettlebells, as we know them, originated from Russia with the handle. And basically, if you haven't seen a kettlebell, it's a cannonball with a handle, more or less. And some quick kettlebell anatomy. I've actually got a little one right beside me. So I know it's a podcast, but we've got the video now. So 3 parts of the anatomy really is all we're going to discuss. It's just the bell, simple enough, the actual ball, the kettlebell. Then the horns are like our lateral tips of the handle. So the aspect of the handle that's on the lateral side is going to be the horn. So we might grab it kind of like you see me now if you're looking at the video. So holding it like this, you can do squats with it that way. And then, of course, the handle, which we can do for our swings and all sorts of things like that. So 3 main parts of the kettlebell. So that type of kettlebells, we know it originated in Russia, became popular in Russia, and then kind of traveled out to America today. And now they're widespread and widely studied. We found them to be very effective in developing power, strength, cardiovascular endurance, and neuromuscular control. I was just reading about some ACL study where they were working on ACL repairs with kettlebell swings. And I think that really speaks to the way it loads the body functionally throughout the whole entire motion. And I love how, like with a kettlebell, with a dumbbell, you pick it up and the center of gravity is right in the center of your palm. With a kettlebell, that center of gravity, all the weight of the bell is below you and it's moving. It's very dynamic as you move throughout the motion. So that makes a huge impact in your movements. And I think that speaks to the study that was done in Russia. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name, but it's VOROPAYEV, 1984. They tested pull-ups, long jumps, and sprints in a bunch of different categories of people. So they trained with different modalities, and one of those included kettlebells. And the group that trained specifically with kettlebells for 2 years, over the course of those 2 years, outperformed in pull-ups, long jumps, and sprints, all those other groups.
Wow.
And I thought that was super interesting. And I think that speaks to what I was just kind of mentioning earlier. They're highly functional. They keep you moving and pushing the weight throughout. It's a perfect blend of going to the gym and doing curls, but making it way more functional with the dumbbell. So it's great. And I think that study really speaks to that. And that was in 1984.
Yeah, for me, it's a full body workout with just one of the exercises with the kettlebell. The one I see mostly is the kettlebell swing.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's really a full body workout, working your anaerobic system also and your aerobic system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where one thing that really confused me about that study initially when I was reading about it is they improved in pull-ups, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But you think about the grip and you're moving it throughout the whole way. You're really having to set your scapulas back and keep that proper positioning throughout everything you're doing. And you're swinging this thing around, as you mentioned, with kettlebell swings, which we'll get to those. Then another quick study, two more studies I want to bring up. McGill, 2012. They tested loads of spinal tissue and the effects of bracing. And when I say bracing, I mean that spinal stabilization that we did an entire podcast on. So kettlebells are great to develop that bracing because you want to do that bracing as you move functionally throughout using a kettlebell. And a specific quote from them is, the analysis provides an insight into why many individuals credit kettlebell swings with restoring and enhancing back health and function, although a few find they irritate tissues. So obviously, if you do them incorrect, you definitely are putting your back at a risk because you're in that flexion position. You can hyperextend. All sorts of things can go wrong. But if you utilize what we talked about in the spinal stabilization podcast, and you really work that transverse abdominis, that oblique, and that multifidus all together to create that corset in your spine, you're keeping it nice and stable throughout these motions, and you won't hurt your back.
And that's what happened to me. So I started with too heavy weight, didn't really know the form, didn't have instruction on the form except seeing some videos that you've done and some other videos online. Hurt my back doing too much weight because I was trying to keep up some other people who were used to it, went lighter weight. And yeah, I mean, it's helped me tremendously, especially with other movements in the gym, but also my back.
Right.
Keeping my back healthy and functional.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because it's great, specifically the swing. And I mean, you could do everything. You do presses, all sorts of exercises. But the swing in particular is just great for that posterior chain. So really developing your back, like you were saying, and just the overall health of your back can help a lot. And then this is perfect stabilization throughout a motion that you'll do in life. If you're doing a kettlebell swing, you're going to bend down to grab something off the floor and stand up. And 50% of that is about a kettlebell swing. So in there, you're creating those good habits.
Right.
And then the last one, the average percentage of the heart, and this is again a quote, percent of heart rate max during kettlebell exercise was significantly higher than the average VO2 max that was achieved with continuous kettlebell swings can impart a metabolic challenge of sufficient intensity to increase VO2 max. Heart rate was substantially higher than VO2 during kettlebell swings. So if you're doing kettlebell swings, like you mentioned in there, that's just a good representation of it's a full body workout. And you're really using a lot of different systems, and it's really taxing and demanding on the body.
So you're talking about short-term workouts, high-intensity workouts, which, the research also shows. So for all of us time-poor people, which we all tend to be these days, doing kettlebell swings, a short workout with that, as far as fat loss goes, allows you to burn fat long after that workout is over, and it's much shorter than going out for a jog, and spend an hour or so doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have that, we'll call it afterburn effect here.
Yeah.
And then what we mentioned kind of in the, I think it was the Metabolic Effect Library podcast, we were talking about the workouts. One thing that I love about kettlebells is what you just mentioned. You can go into the gym and get a killer. I mean, you can brutalize yourself in 20 or 30 minutes with a kettlebell. It takes very little time. I mean, if you try and do swings for 3 or 4 minutes straight, you'll see what I'm talking about. It'll skyrocket your heart rate. And I love it because I do those 20-minute metabolic effect workouts now a lot with school starting back up and all that. And all it takes is basically 4 different sets of kettlebell, pairings, 2 kettlebell exercise paired, and you do those for 5 minutes, like we discussed, for 20 minutes total, and you are fried towards the end. I mean, you can do it perfect. You can hit every muscle group in the body doing that in 20 minutes. And that's how I work out at the beach. And that's another reason why I love kettlebells. They're so easy to move. I take them to the beach. I take them with me. Actually, when I went to travel, I went and visited you a couple of years ago. I brought kettlebells with me there, and I could just stop and work out along the road or do 100 thrusters and keep the blood flow moving as I was driving. So I really love them for moving around. They're just super functional and easy to take with you. So I love that.
Yeah, compare that to, like, the other day I did a workout where we ran 400 meters and we did overhead press, overhead squat with the bar. And there's a pain in the neck taking the bar and the plates out there, whereas kettlebells are just very easy to move around. You can take them on any trips. So you bring, consider it a whole gym, just the kettlebell.
Just the one. Just the one kettlebell. So that's just some basic intro on why I think kettlebells are so great, and some science to back it up, or some studies to back it up. But I think, the combination of functionality and movement, you move in diagonals in real life. And if you go to the gym, if you sit on a machine, it's not moving in a diagonal most of the time. So it's not super functional. So these kettlebell exercises are a lot more functional to life. If you do like an overhead press with a kettlebell, from the rack position. So kind of from that starting position where it's near your chest, and then you're pushing up, you're going through a much greater range and functional way of moving your shoulder complex. Like for example, when you elevate your shoulder past 90 degrees, your clavicle doesn't elevate anymore. It just starts rotating posteriorly. And you want to go through all these biomechanical processes with this. And if you shorten it to do just like a dumbbell shoulder press, and you're just starting 90 and just working straight up and down, you get much less functional value there.
Right.
And I think the kettlebells are great for that. So where do we start with weight? That's always a question I get. For males, and most of the time kettlebells are, they're weighed in poods, which is like some Russian unit of measurement, which is pretty interesting. But then they're also most of the time weighted in kilograms. And then obviously, we'll transfer it to pounds. But for males, I recommend starting with a 16 kilogram or a 20 kilogram kettlebell, which is anywhere from 35 to 44 pounds.
Okay.
So there is a sweet spot, like a Goldilocks, when it comes to finding our kettlebell. We don't want it to be too light that we're able to compensate in the workout. And what I mean by that is, like, we'll take the swing, for example. We'll just reference the swing throughout here. The swing, if you're doing too light of a kettlebell, you're going to use your arms, and you're going to make it more of a shoulder exercise, or you're just going to kind of lackadaisical flow through the exercise. And if it's too heavy, you get the damage to your back, like you saw, and you kind of round your back, or you hyperextend at the end to pop it up. So we want to find that nice sweet spot where we can keep our body tight throughout and really explode that bell, but it is challenging. We do want it to be challenging. That was when I taught kettlebell classes at Auburn in group fitness, that was one of the biggest things I noticed with people who come in, is they always did a little bit more weight than they expected.
Right.
The girls, obviously, I'll say that about the girls. The guys always did a little less weight than they
like
expected.
me, hurting myself. Right.
Yeah. But so find that sweet spot. And again, for males, 16 to 20 kilograms. For females, anywhere from 8 to 12 kilograms. And obviously, if you pick up a bell and you could do more or less safely, do so, whatever fits you. Obviously find your local professional. So a few things that we want to talk about with just general rules of the kettlebell to help keep you safe in general. Again, find a local professional, or contact any one of us and get some help with this so you don't hurt yourself. But if you follow some of these, some of my tips, you'll be at a less likelihood of hurting yourself, and you'll do these exercises more properly. So first off, specific to the swing, and most of our movements branch from the swing with the kettlebell. If you see things like snatches and any of these exercises, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just Google it, snatches kettlebell, and you'll see a video, and it'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. But a lot of these exercises with the kettlebell branch from the swing. That's like our base exercise. If you're starting at the gym right now and you want to pick up a kettlebell for the first time, you need to do a hip hinge, and then you move to the swing. So the hip hinge we've talked about in the spinal stabilization podcast, and how I coach the hip hinge. And I think we talked about this in the deadlift with Brianne, is I'll have the client basically go against the wall with their butt against the wall and just touch their butt to the wall, and then take one more step out, just touch their butt to the wall, take another step out, just touch their butt to the wall, all while trying to keep that neutral spine. So you're just extending. Well, you're more so flexing at the hips, but you're extending your butt backwards away from you, trying to keep that straight spine.
Got it.
So you
start at the wall straight up then, right?
Yeah, start the wall straight up, and then pop your butt back, just your butt, and then keep going. Take another step forward, pop your butt back, just your butt, trying to touch the wall, keep that neutral spine, and keep control of it. You should feel nice and stable as you stretch back. You should feel it lengthen in those hamstrings.
So it's good for kettlebells. It's good for all those major movements, squats, deadlifts, just doing that little exercise.
Well, yeah. And we need to do that. That's like, if you're listening to this and you're one of those people I mentioned who, you message me on Instagram, you just got to a gym where they have kettlebells and you want to start, we need to start with this hip hinge. That's how you're going to ensure that you don't hurt your back, how you can do it properly, and you're not rounding your back throughout. Even if you video your hip hinge and you can look at it, that would be super helpful to you to see how your back looks. But we want the hip hinge to be done properly, because we're not squatting. So we need to understand when we swing, we're not squatting. So we need to understand the basic difference between a hip hinge and a squat. And the hip hinge is going to eccentrically, so lengthen those hamstrings behind us and develop all that power. And a squat, we're going to have more flexion in the knees, and we're going to drop down lower with our butt. So just give you a visual idea. So I'll have my clients stand 6 to 18 inches from the wall and tell them only move your butt and touch the wall, something like that, to rehearse this movement.
Great. Cool.
So that's a good way to start. See if you're ready. Develop that first before picking up the bell. The next thing is we want a proper breathing and bracing through the core. So again, this is just going back and listen to the spinal stabilization episode. We're going to use all 3 of those muscles. We're going to exhale on energy output. So when we exert ourselves, we want to exhale. So exhale on the exertion. We want to brace, like we just mentioned, similar to a Valsalva maneuver. If anyone's familiar with that, you're kind of creating that pressure in your belly to make that corset like we've talked about. And another thing with kettlebells is we don't want to use any wrist. And what I mean by that is we don't want to have a flaccid or a bend in our wrist at all. So we really just want to keep our wrists nice and neutral and locked out as we move throughout kettlebell exercises, like a clean, a snatch, or a press. All these exercises should be done with a locked wrist. So if you're looking at the video right now, you can see I've got a locked wrist holding the kettlebell. But if I flex like this, flex my wrist, I'm putting myself at a position to create some instability in my carpal bones and nonetheless smack myself in the back of the wrist with the kettlebell. If you're doing an exercise like a clean and press or a snatch and you're finding that the bell is flopping over and banging against your arm, which happens to a lot of people and is a huge complaint, you need to punch through the bell a little bit more. And instead of thinking of flipping the bell over, think of more of spiraling the bell around your hand. So we want to spiral the bell around our hand, and we want to always punch through the bell. We want to hit the bell, not let the bell hit us. So that speaks on the wrists. So keep those locked out, punch through the bell, hit the bell, don't let it hit you. And that'll help decrease that plop over when people hit their wrists. And we want to drive through the heels. So with this, I'll say that kettlebells should be done barefooted. I prefer them to be done barefooted with all my clients. I do them barefooted. If anything, if you're wearing shoes like a Chuck Taylor's or a nice flat shoe.
Yeah.
And why we want this is because all kettlebell exercises should be done barefoot when possible, because the goal is to root through the feet. So like a Nike shoe with that raised heel is a problem. You're not able to root through the feet, drive through your heels, and develop that power in your hamstrings and on the way up of your posterior chain. So we want nice flat feet where you can root to the ground, drive through the floor, and project that power in your swing.
Okay.
So again, speaking on that, we want to drive through the heels. So through my group fitness and personal training experience, I noticed that if I told the client to really focus on driving through their heels, it almost created like an instability where their forefoot and their toes were almost so far off the ground because they were trying to express to me how hard they were driving through their heels. And we want to drive through our heels, but we do want a nice balanced through the foot driving the floor via the heels. So nice balanced through the foot, drive through the floor via those heels. So don't get unbalanced. It's the main takeaway there. Drive through the floor. And if you can, do your kettlebell exercises with shoes off. And certainly, please don't do them in like high Nikes or high heels or anything like that, where you're setting yourself up for an injury. Similar to that is never attempt to rescue an exercise with a kettlebell. If at any point your form is faltering, or there's you're halfway between a position and the weight is too much and you've got to quit, you just drop the bell. That's one of the things I love about doing them at the beach. You drop the bell, you don't hurt anything. So never attempt in the middle of an exercise, if something's happening or the bell moves a little awkwardly, to rescue it. Just drop the thing and get out of the way. You're putting yourself at a risk of injury by trying to, save it if it's falling awkwardly, or nonetheless get your toes jammed. That's no good. And this is very similar to the wrist thing. We don't want any death grip on the kettlebell. So we don't want to squeeze the living shit out of our kettlebell. We want to casually hold it and hook with our hands around that handle. So in PT school, they have what's called a lumbrical grip. And I'm sure it's not just PT school, but a lumbrical grip where you basically flex at your major knuckles here. So your first knuckles, your between your fingers and the bigger part of your hand, we'll say. And you flex like that. And we just want to stay like that and just slightly curl our fingers. And that's how we should hold on to the kettlebell. It's mainly your legs and the core that is working in like a kettlebell swing. So all the exercises are different, but again, we're doing this in the context of a kettlebell swing. So with the kettlebell swing, you want to have your legs, your core, and your back doing all the work, and your arms are more or less, I've described them to people as like ribbons. They're just a connection to the kettlebell to keep it from flying away when you project the power forward. But other than that, there should be no lifting with the deltoid, no swinging with the arms, no working of the biceps. The only thing we want to work with our arms is obviously our grip, because we're going to have that hook around the kettlebell, which kettlebells are great for developing grip power. And then we want to keep our scapulas set back. So we really want to retract those, well, keep them in a neutral position, but keep our upper back tight and squeeze our scapulas together. So we have a nice neutral shoulder, and we just hinge along our hips and project that power forward with the kettlebell swing.
Yeah, it's really a core exercise. It's working the core primarily.
Yeah, if you're doing kettlebell swings, you're really hitting those legs, hamstrings, posterior chain, and the core 100%, 100% with kettlebell swings. And that's why we start with something like the hip hinge against the wall, because that's a rehearsing of that movement. And we want to rehearse it and perfect it before we load it and put ourselves at risk of injury.
Okay.
So, there's plenty of different styles of how people teach kettlebells. There's like a pulling style, there's a circular style, a vertical style, and how, different schools of thought of how people teach you to push through kettlebells. Consult a professional, find someone who knows your biomechanics and can help you, do what's right for you. And that's just how we incorporate kettlebells. The two pulling styles of circular and vertical. So circular is exploding hips and knees up and out with the kettlebell. So that's more of a swing when we think about that. A vertical is keep as close to the body as possible and get maximum vertical power and momentum. So when we think of that, we think of something like a snatch.
Okay.
So we keep it nice and tight and close to the body. So those are just two schools of thought when it comes to moving the kettlebell with the body. And then one thing that I really love, and I spoke about this earlier, is how kettlebells keep you moving. And you can create awesome flows with kettlebells, like flows of exercises that really seamlessly work together and keep you moving and are nice and functional. A great example of this, and I really love this guy. I had the opportunity to meet him once, but so it's primal.swolger on Instagram, I think. And his name is Eric Leha, and he works at On It Academy, or On It, the company. And he's a kettlebell instructor there. And he puts up a ton of flows. Definitely I have to preface it by saying, do not start with these flows. The guy is very advanced, and you can see it. I mean, the guy is absolutely shredded. He's a complete beast.
How do you spell his name? How do you spell his name?
Primal, so Primal .swole, like a swole guy, SWOLE, Swolger.
Oh, okay, cool.
And
all right.
So don't start with those, but those are great examples of like how far you can go with kettlebell flows. And he'll be doing crazy things on there. Well, he'll do like a push-up with a clean and then an alternating reverse lunge. So, you would push up, jump up, clean, and press the kettlebell. And then while it was in that press position, go back and do a lunge. And then you would alternate that side. And so these are huge compound movements that are keeping you flowing and working the entire body in very short amount of time. I've posted, speaking about some of my videos, I've posted some of the videos once where I did 30 kettlebell workouts in 30 days. And I did flows throughout all those. And those are on my Instagram. And those are great examples of this. So things where you would do you do a push-up, and you're using two kettlebells in this instance. Do a push-up, do a row on one side, do a row on the other side, pop up, clean, and press them both, and then squat with them, and then restart that from the top. Do the push-up, so on. So it keeps you moving. It's super interactive. There's little time to think, a lot of F words being dropped, a lot of sweat. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, and working the complete body with something like that.
Yeah, super functional and super exciting.
Yeah.
So, and the exercises, as far as all the exercises, the possibilities for kettlebells are endless. It can be used as a replacement for a standard dumbbell, a barbell, or or as a ballistic unbalanced tool, which is designed as. And here's just a handful of things. So a figure eight, you can go look that up. It's basically just a swing, but you manipulate the bell through your legs as you swing up. So it's a lot more quad dominant because you're going to
Oh, wow.
squat up. The one hand alternating swing. I use each one of those weekly. So you can do a 2-hand swing where you're using both hands to swing the bell, a 1-hand swing where you're just using the 1-hand swing, or the 1 hand to swing the bell. And I say 1 hand to swing the bell, and I don't want you to get the impression that we're swinging with our hand. So again, all that power is coming from our hips. The hand is just simply a paper clip that's attached to the bell, holding it there, and you're just swinging along with it. Thrusters, which is basically a squat down where you thrust the bell up on your way up. So that's great for the legs. And then you're working those shoulders and pecs at the very top when you thrust the bell up. So you would squat down, basically touch your elbows to your knees, squat up, and then thrust the bell overhead like you were doing an overhead press. High pull, snatch, clean and press, renegade row. My favorite, and my clients, I'd like to say it was their favorite, but probably their
they
least
hate
favorite.
You for it, right?
Yeah, the Turkish get up, which
Yeah.
everyone hopefully is familiar with the Turkish get up, but it's a pretty involved exercise, but it's so great for the entire body. You start on the ground, you press the bell ahead or overhead, you come up on one forearm, on that opposite end forearm, then you come up on the opposite end hand, and then you bridge up using that core and that posterior chain and glutes to extend your hips up, feed your leg through, then you're in like a one knee position. You stand up, and then you're halfway there, and you got to work all the way back down in the opposite order. So look up a Turkish get up. It's very advanced, but it's a great exercise to develop a lot of neuromuscular control and strength.
You're on your back. You're starting on your back with this thing.
Yep, you're starting
and arm up. Okay.
Yeah, you're starting in the fetal position practically, right?
Oh, okay.
Holding the bell. You roll over, push the bell over, which is basically chest and shoulders. Then you extend up onto your opposite end forearm, your hand, bridge up, so on and so forth. Again, these exercises, any of them, just type them into YouTube or Google, and you'll get a visual depiction, which will definitely help. I just want to give you a list of a few exercises to look up or think of. And then there's windmill. This is also a little bit more advanced. That's where you're just you hold the bell above your hand, and it's really going to lengthen your back and work on the erector spinae muscles. There's squats. Obviously, you can do any type of variation of squat. A rack squat, you can hold the bell right in front of you under the horns, like we discussed. You can do a thruster, which is just adding the squat and then pressing it overhead. You can do an overhead squat. All sorts of things here.
Brian, what's the windmill again? So you're holding above your head?
Yeah. So the windmill would be like you take the kettlebell, you're standing. You've got your feet about hip distance apart. One kettlebell in your arm, and let's say your right arm. You got a kettlebell in your right arm.
So you're holding it over your head.
Holding it over my head, and now what I'm going to do is basically hip hinge and extend my hips as I lower my left arm to the ground, like a triangle pose in yoga, and come back up.
Yes, I got you.
It's great.
That seems vicious. That one.
Yeah, it's got to be done with care, like a lot of these do. But that's one of those things that can make a real big difference if done properly in someone's back pain and just health overall with their back.
Right.
I mean, that's standing straight. That's very functional.
Yeah.
And then gorilla cleans, hike swings. The list goes on and on and on. So I'll just give you a quick little workout here that you can try. So this one's pretty starter ready. So you could do 2-hand swing, left clean and press, right clean and press. Do a 1-hand alternating swing, and all those you're going to do for 30 seconds. And then you're going to take a minute break. You're going to do a 2-hand swing. You're going to do the figure eight. You're going to do a high pull left and a high pull right, 30 seconds apiece. And you're going to end it with 2-hand swings. And you just repeat that twice. So again, do you have
that one? Do you have that one video? Do you have it on video somewhere?
I don't think I have that one videoed, but I have upwards of 40 or 50 on my Instagram that anyone can go look and see things like this. And those I definitely provide the proper form and give you a good example.
Okay.
So as far as answering that question, some great resources, whether it be you're just starting out or you're a personal trainer or a healthcare professional that wants to learn more about this. Dragon Door is like I can't remember if this is Pavel Tozzolini, but I don't think it is. But that's a huge company that deals with kettlebells. They make a lot of videos, books, and DVDs. Pavel Tozzolini, he's very famous. If you never heard a video from him, he always says "comrade." He's from Russia. He he like trained the Spetsnaz, and they use the kettlebell there. And he's very, very he's like the godfather of the kettlebell. Pavel Tozzolini. He's very helpful. A lot of good quality information. And one thing which I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, and I didn't mention it, is so Pavel, he teaches hard style kettlebell. So there's a thing called hard style kettlebell, which what we're going to think of is when you are, let's use the swing, stay with the swing. When you project that power forward and the bell is right in front of you, you're kind of at that midpoint of the swing, if that makes sense. So you're perfectly neutral as far as standing, and the bell is just swinging right in front of you. You want to tighten every muscle in your body, and that's hard style. So when you go up and you do like a clean and press, and you're at the very end, and you reach that end point press above your head, I'm going to do it, where he lets out every time, and that is meant to be whole body tightening, everything. And that will be exhausting. So like if you do kettlebell swings and you do hard style kettlebell swings, which is a great way to ensure you will not hurt your back, and to start with that stabilization, you're really going to develop that, and then that's going to automatically create that pressure. If you just do it right now, you'll feel that pressure in your spine and in your abdomen. So use that hard style to start and get that. And I do that all the time, and I'm out there huffing and puffing when I'm doing kettlebells at the gym, but it really keeps you safe. And that's the whole point of it.
So you could probably find him just typing in Pavel hardstyle kettlebell.
Yep. And he'll explain it. And basically what it is just you tighten everything in your body at the end point. So, when you press above head, you really give that nice, that hearty exhale of a little bit of pressure, but it's cut off by how much pressure you're building. And that'll help keep you safe. But yeah, Pavel Tozzolini, and you can definitely Google him. He is the godfather of kettlebells.
Cool.
One last one is a guy I mentioned earlier, Eric Leha, Instagram.com/PRIMAL.SWOLEDIER. He's got full flow examples, and they're great. Again, I would not start out with them, but he provides a lot of great examples and information, stuff that'll make you want to get up and lift a kettlebell.
Cool.
And then, of course, please don't hesitate to ask me. I absolutely love the kettlebell. I've been, teaching group fitness classes with it for over 3 or 4 years. I bring it into every single one of my training clients. I work out with it weekly, and I think it's a great tool. I think it's a really great tool, and it's a lot more fun than just going to the gym. So the main things. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I got into kettlebells because of you, Brian. And as far as my functionality in the gym, so much better. Shoulder pain, not there anymore like it used to be. Back pain is not there anymore like it used to be. And I really attribute it to those full functional movements and doing the kettlebell type workouts.
Yeah, it's a lot more functional, and it's more demanding on the system at the time, but you can really shorten the exercise, the time in the gym. And that's what I love about it. Yeah. And that's for me,
keeps consistency, if you can hit the gym quick, get in there, get out, get a good workout, and you're going to be more likely to maintain that consistency instead of doing the stereotypical hour to 2 hour bodybuilding workout that I grew up with. So
absolutely. And it's doable. Yeah. And like you mentioned with the consistency, it's like everyone's busy, my girlfriend's a nurse. She works those 12-hour shifts. And on the days where she does that, she can't go to the gym and work an hour. But if you're like, listen, all you have to do is these 8 exercises, and it takes 20 minutes, and it will absolutely, it's 100%, if not more of a workout than you're getting, doing bicep curls and tricep extension on the cable machine at the gym for an hour.
Right.
It can make, it just works. I love it.
Yeah. And you can carry it in your car, bring a kettlebell, put it in your car, and you can take it anywhere with you and do the workout anywhere, really.
Yes, I can confirm you can bring them on a flight. Wouldn't recommend it. It's it's difficult to carry around, but you can.
There you go, man. Yeah, see, maintain that consistency. All right. That's great.
So that's really it. If to answer the overall question of, hey, Brian, I walked into the gym today. They've got kettlebells and I'd really like to try it. Start with that hip hinge against the wall. Develop that hard style pattern of exhaling on your exertion and getting a full maximum contraction and everything that you can imagine when you're at that full exertion moment. And then another quick note, I just got to say it about kettlebell swings. Don't be swinging that kettlebell over your head. I see it all the time in the CrossFit gyms and stuff like that. And I remember I went to a CrossFit gym my freshman year of college once, and I did not return after the guy got on me about not kettlebell swinging my bell all the way above my head. You're just asking for a shoulder massive problem. You're going to dislocate your shoulder by swinging above your head. There's no benefit to swinging it from your heart level, essentially, which is where I want you to swing it, right towards your chin. To going further than that, because the whole thing we're using is our legs. So if you're going higher than that, you're probably bringing in some arms,
and you're bringing in some danger, right? You're making a less safe movement. So I mean, really, if you have to drop the kettlebell and it's out in front of you dropping, it's to be less likely to hit your feet, your head, your shoulders, all that stuff. So
that position with that bell overhead and then that weight on the very top of you, where it's upside down and your arms are like this. And you're fully flexed with your arms and your armpits are facing forward. That's exactly how dislocations happen. That's a prime position. So do your kettlebell swings nice and tight. Follow that hard style. Exhale on the exertion. Contact us if you have any questions. Find a local professional and get to swinging and flowing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I hope this was
kettlebells today.
Yeah, I hope this was a decent primer. Again, hit us up with any questions and keep on swinging.
Take care, everybody.